The sound of the deadbolt sliding home was louder than the wind. I stood on the cracked pavement, shivering, staring at the suitcase my father had thrown onto the lawn. I thought I had just lost my home, but 12 hours later, waking up in my car, I realized it was worse. 2 million strangers were watching a video of my humiliation, and my sister had not just filmed it, she had directed it. The winter in Briar Glen always felt personal. It was a damp, gray cold that settled into the bones of the houses and the people, the kind of weather that made everything feel brittle. I sat at the small desk in the corner of my childhood bedroom, watching the condensation weep down the window pane. My hand moved steadily across the blue lines of a personal check, writing out the words $600. It was the first of the month. Rent was due. At 32 years old, writing a rent check to my mother, Diane, felt like a specific kind of defeat. It was not where I had planned to be. 6 months ago, I had a catastrophic breakup and a layoff in the same week. A 1-2 punch that knocked the wind out of my 10-year career in logistics. I had burned through my emergency fund, keeping my apartment in the city for 2 months, hoping something would break, before swallowing my pride and asking to come home. I am not looking for a handout. I had told my mother, I will pay rent. I will buy my own groceries. I just need a place to land while I rebuild. Diane had agreed, but she had produced a chore list and a rental agreement typed up on her old desktop computer. It felt transactional, which I actually preferred. It made me feel like a tenant rather than a failure. I tore the check out of the book and walked downstairs. The house was quiet, but it was a tense quiet. The air smelled of vanilla artificial sweetener and stale tension. My sister, Kelsey, was back too. That was the variable I had not calculated. Kelsey was 28, loud, beautiful in a way that required high maintenance, and currently camping out in the guest room down the hall. She had come back 3 weeks ago after a failed attempt to launch an influencer career in Boston. She called it a brand pivot. I called it being broke. I found my mother in the kitchen. She was staring out the window at the brown lawn, her hands wrapped around a mug that said, "World's Okayest Mom," a gag gift I had bought her when I was 15. "Here's the rent." "Mom," I said, sliding the check onto the granite counter. She blinked, looking at the check as if she did not quite recognize what it was. "Oh, right, thanks. Nora, just put it on the pile." The pile was a stack of unopened mail on the sideboard. I frowned. I saw the corner of last month's check peeking out from under a bed. "Bath and Beyond coupon. You have not cashed the one from November yet." I said, "Do you want me to just transfer it to you? It messes with my balancing if it just sits there." Diane waved a hand, dismissive. "I will get to it. I have been busy." She did not look busy. She looked tired. There was a tightness around her eyes that had deepened in the last month. My father, Mark, was still at the hardware store he managed, but even he had been coming home later and later, his face gray with exhaustion. I was about to press her on the check when the back door banged open. Kelsey breezed in, bringing a gust of freezing air and the smell of expensive hairspray. She was wearing a beige loungewear set that probably cost more than my car payment, and she was holding her phone out at arm's length, talking to it. "So, guys, the reality is, sometimes you have to return to your roots to grow," she was saying to the screen, her voice pitched an octave higher than her real speaking voice, just grabbing some matcha with the fam. She cut the recording and her face dropped instantly into a scowl. "Mom, we are out of almond milk," Kelsey said, dropping her phone onto the table. "I cannot film the smoothie segment without it. It looks gross with regular milk." Diane immediately pushed off the counter. "I can run to the store. Kels, do not worry." I watched this dynamic play out with a familiar ache in my chest. Kelsey was the sun, and our parents were the planets. Terrified of falling out of orbit, Kelsey looked at me, her eyes flicking over my work uniform slacks and a gray cardigan. I worked at a medical supply office in town now. It was unglamorous, steady work. It paid the bills. "Heading to the grind?" Kelsey asked. She made it sound like a disease. "It is a job." "Kelsey," I said, keeping my voice level, Some of us have them. She laughed. A sharp, barking sound. Ouch. Someone is grumpy. I am just saying. Nora, you look tired. Maybe if you focused on your personal brand a little more, you would not have to work for, like, $12 an hour. I make $24 an hour. I corrected, though I knew it did not matter to her. And I am tired because I was up late fixing the Wi-Fi you crashed uploading your archives. I grabbed an apple from the bowl, polished it on my sleeve, and headed for the door. As I left, I heard Diane soothing her. She is just jealous. Sweetie, do not let her negative energy ruin your creative flow. I closed the front door and walked to my car. The wind bit at my cheeks. Jealous. That was always the word. I was not jealous of Kelsey's chaos. I was terrified of it, because every time Kelsey crashed, she took everyone else down with her, and I had a feeling the crash was coming. The escalation started with the small things. 3 days later, I came home to find the kitchen rearranged. The coffee maker was moved to the floor in the pantry. The toaster was gone. The counters were completely bare, stripped of everything including the jar of utensils and the paper towel holder. I stood in the center of the room, blinking. Mom, I called out. Kelsey poked her head in from the living room. She was wearing a ring light like a necklace, trying to untangle the cord. I moved the clutter. She said, the lighting in here is actually really good around 4 in the afternoon. But the background was too busy. I need clean lines for the lifestyle content. You put the coffee maker on the floor. Kelsey, it is visual noise. Nora, just pull it out when you need it. I walked over to the pantry, retrieved the coffee maker, and put it back on the counter. This is a house, not a set. People live here. Kelsey rolled her eyes and marched into the other room. Mom, she yelled, Nora is messing up the aesthetic again. Diane appeared from the laundry room, looking harried. Nora, please, Kelsey is trying to work. Can you just leave it for a few hours? It means a lot to her. It is her future. My future involves caffeine, I said, but I felt the energy in the room shift. I was the aggressor. I was the one standing in the way of Kelsey's hypothetical success. Later that night, I went to grab my phone charger from the living room and found Mark and Diane huddled at the kitchen table. They pulled apart quickly when I entered, like teenagers caught smoking. There were papers spread out between them. I recognized the logo on a glossy flyer, a local predatory lender that advertised quick cash for home equity. Is everything okay? I asked, pausing in the doorway. Mark swept the papers into a pile and covered them with his hand. Fine. Everything is fine. Nora, I saw a bank notice peeking out. It was red. Dad, I said, stepping closer. I saw the mail earlier. There was a second notice from the mortgage company. Are you guys behind? Mark's face flushed a deep, angry red. He stood up, the chair scraping loud against the linoleum. You are not entitled to adult problems. Nora, he snapped, you are living under my roof for a fraction of what you would pay a landlord. Do not audit me. I took a step back, stung. I am not auditing you. I am worried. If you need help, I do not need help from my child who had to move back into her childhood bedroom at 32, Mark shouted. The silence that followed was ringing. Mark looked shocked by his own volume. He rubbed a hand over his face, looking suddenly very old. I am sorry, he muttered. I am just... There is a lot of pressure at the store. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I know. I am sorry. I retreated to my room, but I could not shake the feeling of dread. My parents had always been private about money, but they had never been cruel. Something was bleeding them dry, and I had a sinking suspicion I knew who it was. The following Tuesday was family dinner night. It was a tradition Diane insisted on, a performance of normalcy that we all endured. We sat around the oval oak table, eating dry pork chops and instant mashed potatoes. Kelsey was in high spirits. She had her phone propped up against the salt shaker, filming a time-lapse of us eating. I had asked her to turn it off, but she said the audience loved wholesome family content. So, Nora, Kelsey said, stabbing a piece of pork, I was talking to Rowan today. You remember Rowan? From high school I kept my eyes on my plate. Vaguely. She is doing amazing. She just bought a condo in the city. Like, a real one. With a doorman. That is great for her. I said, yeah, Kelsey continued, chewing with her mouth slightly open. It is crazy to think she is 3 years younger than you. And she, has her own life. I put my fork down. The metal clinked against the china. What is your point, Kelsey? She blinked, eyes wide and innocent. Nothing, I am just saying. It is a contrast. I mean, do you think you will ever move out again, or is this, the plan now? Just hanging out in your high school room, saving your pennies. Mark cleared his throat. Kelsey, that is enough. No, let her speak. I said, my voice calm. It was a deadly sort of calm that I had learned in logistics, specifically for dealing with angry truckers. Kelsey smiled. It was a small, tight smile. It looked like she was memorizing my reaction. I am just worried about you. Nora, she said, it is pathetic. Honestly, you are 32. You are supposed to be the successful one, right? The one who did everything right. And here you are, eating mom's pork chops and paying rent like a teenager with a paper route. I looked at her, really looked at her. Her makeup was flawless, contouring carved sharp enough to cut glass, but her eyes were dead. There was no heat in them, only calculation. I am rebuilding. Kelsey, I said, I had a career for 10 years. I have savings. I have a plan. And I am paying my way. I am not the one who borrowed $2,000 from Dad last month for a camera lens that is currently sitting in a box unopened. The table went silent. Diane gasped. How did you know about that? Mark asked, looking at me. Because I saw the receipt in the trash. I said, and I saw the withdrawal slip on the counter. Kelsey's face twisted. She did not look embarrassed. She looked excited. You went through my trash, she accused. Her voice rising. You are obsessed with me, God. You are so toxic. Nora. I did not go through your trash. It was on top of the bin. Diane stood up. Stop it, both of you. Nora, why do you have to antagonize her? I stared at my mother. Antagonize her. She just called me pathetic. She is stressed, Diane cried. She is trying to build something. I stood up. Taking my plate to the sink. I am done. Thank you for dinner. As I walked out of the kitchen, I glanced back. Kelsey was not looking at Mom or Dad. She was looking at her phone, tapping the screen, checking the footage. That night, I woke up at 2 a.m. to use the bathroom. The hallway was dark, except for a blinding white halo coming from the far end. I squinted against the glare. A ring light was set up on a tripod, positioned directly outside my bedroom door. It was fully illuminated, a stark white eye staring at my room. I walked over to it, my heart hammering. I looked for a switch to turn it off. What are you doing? I jumped. Kelsey was standing in her doorway, wearing a silk robe. Why is this pointing at my door? I asked. It is for my morning routine reel, she said, crossing her arms. I need to capture the sunrise light hitting the hallway, and I need the fill light to balance it. Kelsey, it is 2 a.m, and it is pointed at my door. It is the angle. Nora, don't be so dramatic. I reached out and clicked the power switch. The hallway plunged back into darkness. Move it, I said. She huffed, a sound of pure petulance. You are ruining everything. I went back to bed, but I did not sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle. I felt like I was being hunted. The breaking point came 3 days later. I logged into my bank account on my lunch break to pay my car insurance. I scrolled through the transaction history, checking the balance. I froze. My balance was $1,200 higher than it should have been. I scrolled back. The rent check I had written in December, $600, was still outstanding. The check I had written in January, another $600, was also outstanding. 2 months of rent, $1,200. My mother had not cashed them. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Diane was meticulous about money. She balanced her checkbook to the penny every Sunday. For her to ignore $1,200, especially when I knew they were struggling, made no sense, unless she couldn't cash them, or unless she didn't want a record of me paying rent. I closed the browser tab, my hands shaking slightly. When I got home that evening, the house felt different. The air was charged, heavy with static. I walked into the kitchen. Mark, Diane, and Kelsey were all there. They were standing around the island. When I walked in, they stopped talking. "Hey," I said, putting my backpack on a chair. Diane looked at Mark. Mark looked at the floor. Kelsey was leaning against the counter, her arms crossed. She was wearing a perfectly coordinated outfit, jeans and a soft white sweater. She looked ready for a photo shoot. "We need to talk," Kelsey said. I looked at my parents. "About what?" "About you," Kelsey said. "About this whole situation." I frowned. "What situation, Nora?" Diane started, her voice trembling. "We just think," Kelsey thinks. "Mom, let me handle it," Kelsey cut in. She turned to me. "Look, Nora, this isn't working. You living here? It is bringing everyone down." I laughed. A short, incredulous sound. "Excuse me, you are a dark cloud." "Nora," Kelsey said, her voice gaining strength. "You are negative. You pick fights. You judge everyone. Mom and Dad are walking on eggshells in their own home because you are so miserable." I turned to Mark. "Dad, is this true?" Mark wouldn't meet my eyes. He was picking at a loose thread on his flannel shirt. "It has been tense, Nora. You have to admit that I have been working." I said, "I pay my rent. Speaking of which, Mom, why haven't you cashed my checks?" Kelsey jumped on it. "See, there she goes, bringing up money, trying to manipulate you." "I am not manipulating anyone," I shouted. "I am asking why my rent checks are sitting in a void." "You are mooching," Kelsey screamed. The volume was sudden and shocking. "You are a 32-year-old moocher who can't handle the real world. So you come back here and leech off our parents." I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked at the counter. The rent checks were there. They were sitting in a small pile next to the fruit bowl. I picked them up. "I gave you these. You know they won't cash them." Kelsey sneered. "Because they feel sorry for you. But I don't. I care about their mental health, and you are destroying it." I looked at Diane. She was crying now, silent tears tracking down her face. "Mom, tell her I pay." Diane sobbed. "I just want peace." "Nora, please, we want you out," Kelsey said. "Tonight?" I stared at her. "Tonight, it is 20 degrees outside." "I don't care," Kelsey said. "For everyone's mental health, you need to go." I looked at Mark. "Dad, you cannot be serious." Mark looked up then. His eyes were hard, but there was panic behind them. He looked like a trapped animal. "Maybe it is best." "Nora," he said, "just for a few nights. Just until things cool down. I am not leaving my home because Kelsey is throwing a tantrum." I said, my voice shaking, "I have rights. I am a tenant." Kelsey stepped forward. She got right in my face. Her eyes were wide, manic. "See?" she hissed. "See how aggressive she is. She is going to hit me." I had not moved. I had not raised my hand. I took a step back, confused. "What are you talking about?" I said. Kelsey stumbled back, throwing her hands up as if to ward off a blow. "Get away from me!" she shrieked. "Dad, she's crazy." Mark moved then. He grabbed my arm. Not gently. "That is enough," he yelled. I tried to pull my arm free. "Dad, let go. I didn't touch her." He dragged me toward the stairs. "Go pack a bag." "Nora, now." I looked back at Kelsey. She was standing by the refrigerator. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me, toward the bookshelf in the living room. I followed her gaze. There, propped up between a vase and a stack of magazines, was her phone. The camera lens was facing the kitchen. The little red light was steady. It was recording. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The ring light, the baiting at dinner, the arranged kitchen. This was a scene. "You are filming this," I whispered. Kelsey did not answer. She just kept up the act, shrinking against the fridge, looking terrified. "Please just go." "Nora, please don't hurt anyone." Mark pushed me toward the stairs. "Move, Nora." I walked up the stairs. My legs felt like lead. I went to my room, I did not pack clothes. I grabbed my laptop. I grabbed my folder of important documents, birth certificate, passport, lease agreement. I shoved them into my backpack. I grabbed my coat. When I came back down, Mark was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. He had my suitcase, the big hard-shell one I used for travel. He had obviously just grabbed it from the closet. It was empty. He opened the front door and threw the suitcase out onto the porch. It clattered loudly on the wood. "Out," he said. I looked at Diane. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, her hand over her mouth. "Mom," I said. She turned away. I walked out the door. The cold air hit me instantly, biting through my sweater. I stepped onto the porch. Mark slammed the door behind me. I heard the deadbolt slide home. I stood there for a moment, stunned. The silence of the neighborhood was deafening. Then, through the thin glass of the living room window, I heard a voice. It was soft, muffled, but clear enough. "Got it," Kelsey said. I looked at the window. I saw her silhouette moving toward the bookshelf. She picked up the phone. I walked down the steps, grabbed the empty suitcase, and dragged it across the frozen lawn to my car. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the keys into the ignition. I started the engine and turned on the heater. I sat there in the dark, watching the house. The lights in the kitchen went out, then the lights in the living room. The house went dark, except for the blue glow of the television in the den, where my parents sat, and the bright white light from Kelsey's room upstairs. She was editing. I put the car in reverse and backed out of the driveway. I did not know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away from the stage. I drove to the Walmart parking lot on the edge of town. It was the only place I could think of where I wouldn't be bothered. I reclined the driver's seat and pulled my coat over me like a blanket. I stared at the fabric roof of the car. I replayed the last hour in my mind, the way Kelsey had positioned herself, the way Mark had grabbed the suitcase. It was theatrical. He had thrown it. Who throws a suitcase? Someone who wants it to look good on camera. I closed my eyes, but sleep didn't come. I lay there shivering, listening to the hum of the highway nearby. Around 6 a.m, the sun began to bleed gray light over the parking lot. I sat up, my neck stiff, my mouth tasting like metal. I reached for my phone. I needed to find a hotel. I needed to call my boss. I unlocked the screen. I had 42 notifications. That was impossible. I was not popular. I didn't use social media much. I opened Instagram. My feed was gone. It was replaced by a wall of notifications. Tagged you in a post, mentioned you in a comment, tagged you in a reel. I clicked on the first one. It was a video posted by an account called Kelson Chaos. The account was new. It had one post. The video had 2.4 million views. The thumbnail was a blurry shot of my face, twisted in confusion. With big red text overlaid, "Psycho Sister kicked out." I pressed play. The video started with Kelsey talking to the camera, whispering, "Guys, I am literally shaking right now. My older sister has been terrorizing my parents for months. Tonight she finally snapped." Jump cut. The footage was grainy, taken from the shelf. It showed me standing in the kitchen, but the audio was out of sync. It showed me shouting, "I am asking why my rent checks are sitting in a void," but the caption read, "Screaming at parents about money." Jump cut. Me stepping toward Kelsey. The angle made it look like I was lunging. The audio of me saying, "What are you talking about?" was muted. Instead, there was a dramatic sound effect, a low bass boom. Jump cut. Kelsey cowering. "Please don't hurt anyone." Jump cut. Mark grabbing me. The caption, "Dad protecting me." And then the money shot. The suitcase flying out the door. Me walking out into the cold. Mark slamming the door. The video ended with Kelsey crying into the camera, looking perfect and tragic. I just want her to get help. But we couldn't take the abuse anymore. I scrolled down to the comments. "OMG, she looks unhinged. Good for you for standing up to her. That stare she gave you. Pure evil. Why is she 32 and living at home? Loser. Glad you are safe. Babe." I dropped the phone into my lap. My hands were numb. I looked out the window at the Walmart shoppers pushing carts. Normal people, living normal lives. I was not a normal person anymore. I was a meme. I was a villain. I picked up the phone again and watched the video one more time. I watched the moment where I looked at the bookshelf, in the video. They had zoomed in on my face so you couldn't see what I was looking at. They had cropped out the phone. I sat up straight. I remembered the ring light. I remembered the red envelope on the counter. I remembered the undeposited checks. This wasn't a fight. This was a production. I started the car. The engine roared to life, loud in the morning quiet. I was not going to cry. I had done my crying in the first hour. Now, I felt something else. A cold, hard clarity, sharper than the winter air. Kelsey wanted a show. She wanted engagement. She wanted a story. She had no idea what kind of story she had just started. I put the car in drive and pulled out of the lot. I wasn't going back to the house. Not yet. I had work to do. The dashboard clock read 7 in the morning. I had been awake since 4, watching the frost form intricate, lace-like patterns on the inside of my windshield. My body felt like a bruised peach. Tender and aching from trying to sleep, curled in the driver's seat of a Honda Civic. The cold had seeped through my coat, through my skin, and settled deep in my chest. I sat up, my spine cracking audibly. I needed a bathroom. I needed coffee. I needed to scrub the feeling of grease off my face, but mostly, I needed to understand what was happening on the small, glowing screen resting on the passenger seat. I picked up my phone. The battery was at 12%. The notifications were still rolling in. A relentless tide of digital noise. I tapped on the Instagram icon, my finger hovering over the screen. I had blocked the account Kels in Chaos, the handle she had created overnight, but the internet was a hydra. For every head I cut off, 2 more appeared in the form of reposts, duets, and reaction videos. I found a repost on a generic drama page called Tea Spill Daily. The caption read, "Grown woman gets kicked out after meltdown. Watch the entitlement." I pressed play. The video was a masterclass in manipulation. It wasn't just a recording. It was a production. The clip opened with a black screen and white text, POV. You finally stand up to your abusive sister. Then it cut to the kitchen. In the raw moment, I had been standing still, my hands at my sides, but the editor had zoomed in on my hands, which were clenched into fists. They had slowed the footage down just slightly, adding a subtle, ominous bass drone to the audio track. It made me look coiled, ready to strike. I am asking why my rent checks are sitting in a void. The audio was clear, but the context was stripped. They had cut Diane sobbing. They had cut Kelsey's sneering provocation about me being a moocher. They had only kept my volume, my demand. Then, the jump cut. The moment where I had stepped forward to look at the bookshelf, to look at the phone, was gone. Instead, the video snapped directly to Kelsey stumbling back against the refrigerator. Her hands up in surrender. "Please don't hurt anyone." She whimpered in the clip. The editing made it look like I had lunged at her. The spatial continuity was broken. But to a casual viewer scrolling through their feed in 3 seconds, it looked like assault. I watched the comments scroll by, a dizzying blur of judgment. She looks like she is on something, the way the dad had to step in. Scary. If I was 32 and acting like that, I would hope someone kicked me out too. Does she have a job? Or just rage issues? I turned the phone off. The black screen reflected my own face back at me, pale. Dark circles under my eyes. Hair matted on one side. I looked exactly like the unstable woman in the video. I had to go to work. The thought was absurd. My life had imploded. My reputation was being incinerated by strangers, and I was homeless. But I had a shift at 8:30. I had bills. I had a car payment. I had to maintain the illusion that I was still a person. I drove to a 24-hour gym on the other side of town, one where I still had a membership from before the layoff. I showered in the locker room, the hot water stinging my cold skin. I put on my work clothes, slacks, and a blouse that I had luckily packed in the backpack and tried to blow dry my hair into something professional. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see Nora Hayes, logistics coordinator. I saw the villain from the video. I wondered if everyone else would see her too. The office was quiet when I arrived, It was a medical supply distribution center, a place of beige carpets and fluorescent lights. Usually, I found the sterility comforting. Today, it felt like a stage where everyone knew their lines but me. I walked to my cubicle, keeping my head down. I logged into my computer, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Morning. Nora. I jumped. It was Tessa, the accounts receivable clerk who sat in the cubicle next to mine. Tessa was 40, with a sharp bob and a sharper wit. We often ate lunch together in the break room, trading complaints about supply chain delays. Morning, I whispered. Tessa didn't move. She was standing at the edge of my desk, holding a travel mug. She wasn't looking at her coffee. She was looking at me. You look like you slept in a dryer, she said softly. I tried to laugh, but it came out as a ragged cough. Rough night. Tessa pulled a chair over and sat down. She lowered her voice. Nora. I saw it. My stomach dropped through the floor. Saw what my niece sent it to me this morning. She follows some drama account. She asked if this was the Nora I work with. I closed my eyes. Humiliation, hot and prickly, washed over me. I wanted to crawl under the desk. It is edited. Tessa, I said, my voice shaking. It is not. That is not what happened. I know, Tessa said firmly. I opened my eyes. You do I know you. Nora, you apologize to the vending machine if you bump into it. You are not that. She gestured vaguely at her phone. But, she continued, her expression serious. You are in the same clothes you wore on Friday, and you have toothpaste on your collar. I looked down. There was a small white smear on my navy blouse. I scrubbed at it with my thumb, tears suddenly pricking my eyes. She kicked me out. I whispered, my sister. She staged it, filmed it, and kicked me out. I slept in my car. Tessa didn't gasp. She didn't ask for details. She just nodded. Practical as ever. You are not sleeping in your car tonight. I have a pull-out couch. It is lumpy, and my cat is judgmental. But it is warm. No, I can't impose. Nora, Tessa said, cutting me off. You are currently trending on Instagram as the Karen of the Year, or whatever they are calling it. You need a base of operations. You are taking the couch. I looked at her. In a world that had suddenly turned hostile, her offer felt like a lifeline. Thank you. I choked out. Don't thank me yet. Wait until you meet the cat. Now, pull yourself together. Henderson is on the warpath about the catheter shipment. I tried to work. I really did. I answered emails. I updated spreadsheets. But every time my phone buzzed, I flinched. Every time a coworker walked past my cubicle, I felt their eyes on the back of my neck. Were they watching it? Did they know? At 11 o'clock, the internal messaging system pinged. Henderson. Robert, please come to my office. I stood up. My legs felt weak. I smoothed my skirt and walked down the hallway to the corner office. Mr. Henderson was a man who disliked friction. He liked numbers, he liked golf, and he liked silence. He was sitting behind his mahogany desk, looking at his computer screen with a pained expression. Sit down. Nora, he said without looking up. I sat. The leather chair creaked loudly. He turned the monitor around. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was the video. But it wasn't on Instagram. It was on the company's Facebook page. Someone had posted the link in the comments of our latest promotional post about diabetic socks. The comment read, Is this the kind of person you employ? A violent abuser, not a good look for a healthcare company. We have received 3 calls this morning. Henderson said, his voice flat. 1 from a vendor, 2 from, well, the public. I am so sorry. Mr. Henderson, I said, my hands twisting in my lap. That is a personal family matter. It is a manipulated video. My sister, I don't need the backstory. Nora, he interrupted, holding up a hand. I really don't. What I need is for the phone to stop ringing about my logistics coordinator. He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. We deal with vulnerable populations. Nora, elderly care facilities, hospitals. We cannot have an employee who is publicly perceived as unstable or dangerous. I am not dangerous. I said, my voice rising slightly. I am the victim here. Perception is reality in business, he said. You know that. He sighed. Look, I can't fire you for a family dispute, but I can't have you here right now. It is a distraction. And frankly, until this blows over, you are a liability. He slid a paper across the desk. It was a leave request form. Take a few days, unpaid. I am afraid, since you used your personal time for the move last month, get this sorted out. Get it offline. Mr. Henderson, I can't get it offline. It is viral. Then wait for the news cycle to move on. Come back on Monday. We will reassess then. It wasn't a request. I walked back to my desk, feeling like a ghost. I packed my bag. I didn't look at Tessa. I just walked out to my car, the shame burning my skin like a sunburn. Tessa's apartment was small, cluttered, and smelled of lavender and cat litter. It was perfect. I sat on the lumpy couch she had promised, my laptop open on the coffee table. Tessa was in the kitchen making tea, giving me space. I had to stop reacting and start analyzing. I was a logistics professional. I solved problems. This was just a problem, a loud, humiliating, career-ending problem. I pulled up the video again. I forced myself to detach. I wasn't Nora Hayes, the crying woman. I was an investigator. I downloaded the clip using a third-party site so I could scrub through it frame by frame. I watched the kick-out sequence. Frame 0045. I am shouting. Frame 0046. Mark steps in. Frame 0047. The camera jerks. I paused. I rewound. At 0046, just as Mark grabs my arm, there is a glitch in the audio, a tiny pop, and the light shifts on the wall behind us. The sun was setting when this happened. The shadows in the kitchen were long, but in the shot where Kelsey is cowering, the shadow of the refrigerator is at a different angle. I checked the time. Sunset was at 4:52 in the shot of me shouting. The shadow on the wall is sharp in the shot of Kelsey cowering. The shadow is diffused, softer. They were filmed at different times. I grabbed a notebook. Discrepancy 1 lighting shift between confrontation and reaction shots. Discrepancy 2. Audio glitch at 0046 indicates a splice. I kept watching. I looked at the background. In the shot where I am supposedly lunging, you can see the digital clock on the microwave over my shoulder. It is blurry, but readable. 5:12. I scrubbed back to the start of the video. The clock on the wall behind Diane reads 5:10. 2 minutes. A normal argument flows. It doesn't have 2-minute gaps between sentences. And then I saw it. The smoking gun. In the final shot, where Mark throws my suitcase, the camera pans slightly to the left. For a split second, less than 10 frames, you can see a reflection in the darkened window of the den. It was Kelsey holding the phone. But she wasn't just holding it. She was holding up a hand. 3 fingers extended. 3, 2, 1. She was counting him in. I froze the frame. It was grainy. Barely a smudge of light. But it was there. She was directing him. I sat back, exhaling a breath I didn't know I was holding. It wasn't just edited. It was scripted. Mark didn't throw the suitcase because he was angry. He threw it because she told him to go on action. I picked up my phone. I needed to talk to my mother. I needed to believe that she wasn't part of the direction, that she was just a bystander, swept up in Kelsey's hurricane. I typed out a text to Diane. Mom, I'm staying at a friend's. I saw the video. You know that isn't what happened. You know Kelsey edited it to make me look violent. I just lost days of pay because of this. Please, I need you to send me the full video, the one on her phone. I need to clear my name so I can keep my job. And I would like to come home and talk about this like adults. I stared at the screen, waiting. The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, the phone buzzed. Diane Nora, we love you, but we cannot enable this denial anymore. You need to look at your behavior. This is what happens when you refuse accountability. Please do not come to the house until you are ready to apologize to your sister. I read the text twice. This is what happens when you refuse accountability. My mother didn't talk like that. My mother said things like, "Oh dear," and "let's not make a fuss." She didn't use therapy speak weaponized for guilt trips. Kelsey had written the text, or she had told Diane exactly what to say. I threw the phone onto the cushion. A surge of rage, hot and pure, replaced the shame. They were destroying me, systematically, and they felt righteous about it. The phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look. I expected more hate, more comments, more links to the video, but it was a text message from an unknown number. Area code 617, Boston. I picked it up. There was no text, just an image, a screenshot. It looked like an email chain. The subject line was viral moment family drama /kickout /2M plus views guaranteed. The sender was contactmarlowhousemedia.com. The recipient was redacted, but it looked like an editor at a gossip site called The Daily Tea. The body of the email read, "Hey guys, we have a creator. Kelsey Hayes rebranding to the toxic truth, with a massive organic viral moment happening right now. Raw, emotional family conflict. The evil sister narrative is tracking huge. We are looking for placement on your main feed. Exclusive rights available for the unedited B-roll if the price is right." Let's discuss. Attached to the email was the thumbnail of my face. I stared at the screen. Marlow House Media. The text bubble animated. A message appeared. Unknown. She is not just posting it for likes. She is shopping it. Marlow House is a boutique management firm for micro-influencers. They specialize in reality narrative. You are the product. Nora. I typed back, my fingers flying. Who is this unknown someone who knows how Kelsey operates? Check the timestamp on that email. It was sent 3 hours before the kickout. I zoomed in on the screenshot. The timestamp was 2:15 p.m. on Friday. Mark had thrown my suitcase at 5:15 p.m. They had pitched the story before it even happened. The room spun. This wasn't a family breakdown. It wasn't an emotional explosion. It was a business transaction. They had sold the video, and then they had filmed it to fulfill the contract. My rent checks, the ring light, the carefully arranged kitchen. It was all set dressing. I was the prop. I looked at the unknown number. Why are you telling me this, unknown? Because she did it to me too. Just not as well. The user went offline. I sat there, the silence of the apartment pressing in on me. I felt sick, physically nauseous. My own parents. They had sold me out for... What a viral moment. A contract. I remembered the papers on the table, the refinance flyer, the debt. Desperation makes people do ugly things. I opened my laptop again. I needed proof, real proof, not just discrepancies in a video. I logged into my bank portal. I downloaded the PDFs of every check I had written to Diane in the last 6 months. September $600. Cashed. October $600. Cashed. November $600. Outstanding. December $600. Outstanding. January $600. Outstanding. I printed them to a PDF. Exhibit a proof of payment. I dug through my camera roll. I scrolled back 2 weeks. I had taken a picture of the hallway to send to a friend. Joking about the mess. There it was. In the corner of the frame, the ring light, but also, on the floor, a piece of paper with Kelsey's handwriting. It was blurry, but if I zoomed in, I could make out a list. 1. Provoke about money. 2. Mom cries, needs tears. 3. The suitcase throw dad needs to be firm. I hadn't noticed it at the time. I thought it was just her notes for some makeup tutorial. I saved the photo. Exhibit B premeditation. I went to my email. I found the rental agreement Diane had typed up. It was simple, but it was a contract. Tenant Nora Hayes. Landlord Diane Hayes. Notice required for eviction 30 days. They had given me 30 seconds. I saved it. Exhibit C. Illegal eviction. I had a folder. I had evidence, but I didn't know what to do with it. I went to Instagram. I found the reporting tool. Report this post. Reason bullying or harassment. Specifics. Targeting me. I hit submit. A screen popped up. Thank you for your report. We use technology and human review to process reports. Due to high volume, this may take time. I reported the account for impersonation. I reported it for violence. I reported it for false information. 10 minutes later, I got an automated email. We have reviewed your report and found that the content does not violate our community guidelines. We understand this may be upsetting, but we allow content that depicts controversial issues. I stared at the screen. Of course. It was engagement. It was ads. Instagram didn't care if it was a lie, as long as people were watching. Tessa walked in. She had a plate of toast. Eat, she said. You look like you are plotting a murder. I am plotting a defense, I said, taking a piece of toast. But the system is designed for them, Tessa. It is designed for the loud ones. Then you have to get louder, Tessa said. Or smarter. My phone pinged with an email notification. It wasn't a reply from Diane. It wasn't the mystery texter. It was an email from legalmarlowhousemedia.com. My heart hammered. I opened it. Urgent cease and desist / notice of harassment. Dear Ms. Hayes, we represent Kelsey Hayes and her brand entities. It has come to our attention that you are contacting our client and her associates, Diane Hayes, Mark Hayes, with harassing messages and demands. Furthermore, we are aware that you may be planning to disseminate false statements regarding the video content posted on January 24th. Be advised that the content in question is a verified documentation of a domestic incident. Any attempt to claim otherwise, or to defame Kelsey Hayes by alleging staging or scripting, will be considered tortious interference with her business relationships. We demand that you immediately cease all contact with the Hayes family and refrain from posting any defamatory comments on social media. Failure to comply will result in immediate legal escalation, governed by the laws of Massachusetts. Sincerely, Tyler Marlowe, Director of Operations, Marlowe House Media. I read it 3 times. The language was heavy, scary, tortious interference, defamatory, legal escalation, but I looked closer. There was no bar association number. There was no law firm letterhead. Tyler Marlowe was the Director of Operations, not an attorney. I looked up Marlowe House Media on Google. It was a Squarespace website. The address was a P&O box in a strip mall in Revere. It was a fake legal threat, a scare tactic. They were trying to bully me into silence because they knew I had the truth. They knew the video was a fraud, and they were terrified I would expose the business deal behind the family drama. My stomach turned over. A cold, heavy stone. I wasn't just fighting my sister anymore. I was fighting a company that had monetized my homelessness before I even packed my bag. I looked at Tessa. They sent me a cease and desist. I said, Tessa, stop chewing. From a lawyer, from a director of operations, I said. They are trying to scare me. Is it working? Tessa asked. I looked at the email again. I looked at the folder of evidence on my desktop. I looked at the picture of my mother, the woman who had ostensibly agreed to this plan to pay off a debt. Yes, I said quietly, it is working. But then I remembered the unknown texter. You are the product. Nora. I closed the laptop. I am scared. I admitted, but I'm not stopping. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside. The streetlights were flickering on. Somewhere out there, Kelsey was probably filming a follow-up, crying about how hard it was to cut toxic family out of her life. Let them think I'm scared. I thought, let them think I'm silenced. I needed a real lawyer, and I needed to stop playing by their rules. They wanted a reality show. Fine, but in the season finale, the villain usually gets caught. I turned back to Tessa. Do you know anyone who works in family law or defamation? Tessa smiled, a grim, determined expression. My cousin Lila, she said. She works legal aid. She hates bullies, and she really hates influencers. Call her. I said. I was done crying. I was done sleeping in cars. I was ready to rewrite the script. Lila Benton's office was located above a laundromat on the edge of Briar Glen, in a building that smelled permanently of dryer sheets and old dust. The waiting room had 2 plastic chairs and a stack of magazines from 3 years ago. It was a far cry from the sleek, glass-walled firms I had seen on television. But it was what I could afford. which was nothing. Lila herself was small, sharp-featured, and looked like she hadn't slept a full 8 hours since the mid-90s. She wore a cardigan that had seen better days, but her eyes, framed by thick red glasses, were laser-focused on the cease and desist letter I had printed out. She read it in silence, her lips moving slightly. Then she tossed it onto her desk. "Garbage," she said. I blinked. "Excuse me. It is legal cosplay. Nora," she said, leaning back in her creaking chair. "Look at the language. Tortious interference. Business relationships. It is a template they downloaded off the internet. It is designed to scare people who don't know any better." Tyler Marlowe. I looked him up while you were waiting. He is 24. His previous business experience was selling drop-ship sunglasses. He is not a lawyer. I felt a knot loosen in my chest, but the fear didn't vanish completely. "But can they sue me?" I asked. "For defamation, anyone can sue anyone for anything in this country," Lila said, taking a sip from a mug that said, "I dissent," but to win. "They have to prove that what you are saying is false and that it caused them actual financial damage. If you say the video was staged, and you have proof it was staged, that is not defamation, that is the truth. Truth is an absolute defense." She leaned forward, her expression serious. "However, Nora, you are in a precarious position. You are dealing with internet people. They feed on attention. If you go online right now and start screaming that they are liars, you are just giving them more content. You become the crazy sister who is obsessed with them. You validate their narrative. So I just do nothing I asked. Feeling the frustration rise, I just let them destroy my name." "No," Lila said firmly. "You do not do nothing. You do the hardest thing in the world. You stay quiet publicly, and you get loud privately. You build a fortress of paper." She tapped a yellow legal pad. "You said there were discrepancies in the video. Lighting, audio. Write them down. You said you have proof of rent payments. Print them. You said you have texts. Screenshot them. We are going to compile a dossier that is so boring, so factual, and so undeniable that when we finally drop it, they won't be able to spin it." She handed the cease and desist letter back to me. "Ignore this. If a real lawyer contacts you, call me. Until then, you are a ghost." I went back to Tessa's apartment and turned her small dining table into a war room. Lila was right. I needed to stop reacting and start cataloging. I treated it like a supply chain audit. I created a spreadsheet. Column A, the lie. Column B, the evidence. Column C, the source. I started with the rent. Lie. Nora is a moocher who refuses to pay. Evidence 6, canceled checks. September through February, total value, $3,600. Source, citizens' bank statements. I moved to the violence. Lie. Nora lunged at Kelsey. Evidence, discontinuity and shadows on the kitchen wall indicating a time jump of at least 15 minutes between the shout and the reaction. Source, metadata analysis of the viral clip versus sunset data for Briar Glen on January 24th. It felt good to be clinical. It felt safe. But safety was an illusion. Later that afternoon, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. I almost deleted it, thinking it was more hate mail. But the preview text caught my eye. It's Rowan, Kelsey's friend. Well, ex-friend. Don't tell her I messaged you. I stared at the phone. Rowan had been Kelsey's best friend since high school. They were inseparable. They had moved to the city together. I typed back, "Why are you contacting me?" The response came immediately. A bubbling stream of gray bubbles. I saw the video. I know the look she gives the camera at the end. She did the same thing to me when we lived together in Boston. She staged a fight about me stealing her clothes for a TikTok trend. People sent me death threats for weeks. I had to move out. I felt a chill. She has done this before, Rowan. It is the Marlowe House playbook. They tell you that conflict drives engagement. They script it. Kelsey is desperate. Nora, she is in deep with them. Nora. What do you mean? Deep, Rowan. It is a pyramid scheme dressed up as management. They charge a monthly retainer of $2,000 for coaching and editing, plus they take 30% of ad revenue. Kelsey hasn't made a dime in 6 months. She is drowning in debt. She borrowed money from me that she never paid back. That is why we stopped talking. She thinks this viral moment is going to pay off her credit cards. I set the phone down. $2,000 a month. Kelsey was paying a company to tell her how to ruin her family. And my parents, they were refinancing the house. They were borrowing money from predatory lenders. Was it to pay Kelsey's fees? I added a new tab to my spreadsheet. Financial motive. The next morning, the internet bled into the real world. I needed groceries. Tessa's fridge was empty, and I felt guilty eating her food. I drove to the stop shop 3 towns over, hoping to be anonymous. I wore a baseball cap and sunglasses, looking like a celebrity trying to avoid paparazzi, or a criminal on the run. I was in the pasta aisle, debating between penne and fusilli, when I heard a scoff. Well, look who it is. The freeloader. I froze. I turned slowly. It was Mrs. Gable, a woman who lived 2 streets over from my parents. She was wearing a quilted vest and holding a basket of organic apples. Mrs. Gable, I said, my voice tight. I saw the video, she said, loud enough for the woman stocking shelves to look up. Disgusting. Your poor mother. After everything she has done for you. Mrs. Gable, that video was not— Don't speak to me, she snapped, pulling her basket closer. You are a nasty piece of work. Nora Hayes. Violent. I told my husband, if we see your car on our street, we are calling the police. We don't want that kind of instability in the neighborhood. She marched away, her heels clicking on the linoleum. I abandoned my cart. I walked out of the store, my face burning. I got into my car and locked the doors. My phone pinged. I looked at Instagram. Someone had tagged me in a photo. It was a picture of my car. Taken 5 minutes ago in the parking lot. Spotted the crazy sister at Stop Shop. She looks paranoid, LOL. Kels in chaos drama. I looked around the parking lot, scanning the cars. Who was watching? Who was taking pictures? I felt hunted. The glass of the windshield felt too thin. I drove back to Tessa's, taking a circuitous route, checking my rearview mirror every 10 seconds. When I got inside, I collapsed onto the couch, shaking. Tessa came home an hour later. She took one look at me and went into crisis mode. Okay, she said. New rules. You don't go out alone. If you need groceries, I go. If you need to go to the lawyer, I drive you. I can't live like a prisoner. Tessa, you are not a prisoner. You are a target, and targets need to move carefully until the shooter runs out of ammo. She went to the window and closed the blinds. And we are getting a dash cam for your car, she added. Front and rear. If anyone comes near you, we record them. Fight surveillance with surveillance. The feeling of violation deepened 2 days later. I was checking my email, deleting the spam and the hate mail, when I saw a notification from Credit Karma. New inquiry on your Equifax report. My heart stopped. I hadn't applied for credit. I hadn't bought anything. I logged into the site, my fingers fumbling with the password. There was a hard inquiry dated yesterday. Lending Club. Personal loan application. I clicked for details. The application was for $15,000. I called the credit bureau immediately. I spent 40 minutes on hold, listening to terrible jazz music, pacing the length of Tessa's small living room. Finally, a representative came on the line. I didn't authorize this. I said, my voice rising, this is fraud. We can place a fraud alert on your file. Ms. Hayes, do you have any idea who might have had access to your social security number? I closed my eyes. My social security card was in the fireproof box in my parents' study. Along with my birth certificate, it wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a hacker in a basement in Russia. It was family, or it was Kelsey, who knew exactly where the key to that box was hidden. Freeze it, I said. Freeze everything. No one opens a lemonade stand in my name without a PIN number. Do you understand? I hung up. I felt sick. This wasn't just about content anymore. This was a crime. Identity theft. I looked at my spreadsheet. I added a new line. Crime attempted fraud. Evidence hard inquiry. February 2nd. Suspect Kelsey Hayes / Mark Diane Hayes. I needed to look my mother in the eye. I needed to know if she knew. I texted Diane. Meet me at the Daily Grind. Neutral ground. 20 minutes. If you don't come, I am going to the police station to file a report about the loan application someone just tried to take out in my name. She replied in 2 minutes. I'll be there. The daily grind was busy, filled with college students and remote workers. The noise was comforting, the hiss of espresso machines, the murmur of conversation. It felt safe. I sat at a corner table. I took my phone out. Massachusetts is a 2-party consent state. You cannot record someone secretly. If I wanted this to be admissible, if I wanted to use it, I had to be transparent. Diane walked in. She looked terrible. Her skin was gray, her eyes red-rimmed. She wore a coat that looked too big for her, as if she had shrunk in the last week. She sat down opposite me. She didn't buy a coffee. I put my phone on the table between us. I opened the voice memo app. I pressed record. The red waveform started to move. Mom, I said clearly, I am recording this conversation for my safety and yours. If you don't want to be recorded, you can leave. Diane looked at the phone, then at me. Her eyes were filled with a mix of fear and exhaustion. She didn't get up. Fine, she whispered. Record it. Maybe then you will listen. I folded my hands. Who tried to take out a $15,000 loan in my name yesterday? Diane flinched. She looked at her hands. I don't know what you are talking about. Don't lie to me. Mom, my credit report alerted me. Someone with access to the fireproof box used my social security number. Was it you? Or was it Kelsey? Diane picked at a loose thread on her coat. Kelsey. She needed bridge capital. Just until the brand deals check came in, she was going to pay it back. Nora. She swore she would pay it back before the first statement arrived. I stared at her. The room seemed to tilt. You let her steal my identity because she needed bridge capital. She didn't steal it, Diane hissed, leaning forward. We are a family. We help each other. Unlike you, who just takes and takes. I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. I take Mom. I paid you rent that you never cashed. I bought my own groceries. Kelsey is the one draining you dry. She is paying Marlowe House $2,000 a month, isn't she? Diane's face went white. How do you know that? Because people talk. Mom, she is in debt. She is using you. And now she is committing felonies in my name. It is not a felony, Diane cried. People turned their heads. She lowered her voice. It is a loan, and she couldn't get it approved because her credit is overextended. She just needed a cosigner. Essentially, without my consent. That is fraud. Mom. Diane reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Her grip was desperate. Clammy. Nora, please. You have to stop this. Stop the reporting. Stop the investigating. You are making it worse. Making what worse? The fact that you kicked me out onto the street for a video. It wasn't just for the video, Diane said. It was necessary. We needed you. We needed the space. The space I asked. For what? My room is 10 by 12. Diane pulled her hand back. She looked away, her eyes darting to the door. We needed to cool things off, she muttered. That was the plan. You go for a few days. The internet gets its show. Kelsey gets her engagement numbers up so she can pay off the debts. And then we bring you back. Quietly. Once the heat dies down. I stared at the recording app. The red timer counted up. 0412, 0413. So it was a plan. I said slowly, you admit it. You planned to kick me out to help Kelsey's engagement numbers. Diane looked trapped. It sounds bad when you say it like that, but we are drowning. Nora, your father. The store is failing. We have a balloon payment on the mortgage. Kelsey said if she could just hit 2 million views, she could get a sponsorship with a tea company that pays $20,000. We needed the money. She looked at me, pleading. We did it for the family. Why can't you see that I picked up my phone? I stopped the recording. I see it. Mom, I said, I see exactly what this family is. I stood up. I am freezing my credit. If she tries it again, I will press charges. And Mom. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. Don't wait up for me. I went straight to Lila's office. I played her the recording. When it finished, Lila sat in silence for a long moment. Admissible, I asked. She nodded. You stated you were recording. She stayed. She spoke. It is admissible. And it is devastating. She admitted to the conspiracy. She admitted to the financial motive. So we sue. Not yet, Lila said. We fire a warning shot. A real one. We drafted the demand letter together. It was a thing of beauty. Cold, precise, and terrifying. To Marlowe House Media and Ms. Kelsey Hayes. We represent Nora Hayes regarding the unauthorized and defamatory publication of video content on January 24th. We are in possession of evidence demonstrating that said content was staged, scripted, and produced with the intent to deceive the public and cause reputational harm to our client. We are further in possession of audio recordings wherein parties confirm the kick-out was a premeditated act designed to generate revenue. We demand the immediate removal of the video. We demand a preservation of all communications, raw footage, and financial records related to this production. We further demand that you cease all attempts to access our client's financial information. Failure to comply will result in immediate filing of a civil complaint for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and fraud. We sent it via certified mail and email. I felt a grim satisfaction as I hit send. The ball was in their court. Kelsey's response came 6 hours later. Not a lawyer's letter, a video. I was at Tessa's, eating takeout soup. When the notification popped up, The Toxic Truth started a live video. I clicked it. Kelsey was sitting on the floor of her bedroom, the guest room bathed in the soft glow of the ring light. She was wearing no makeup, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked fragile. "Hey guys," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't want to do this. I really didn't. But I feel like I am being silenced." She wiped away a tear. "My sister. She has hired a lawyer. She is threatening to sue me. Sue her own family, because we shared our truth." She looked down at her hands. "There are things I haven't told you, about Nora, about why we really had to ask her to leave. It wasn't just the fighting. It was scary. She has these episodes. She gets paranoid. She thinks everyone is plotting against her. She thinks we are stealing from her." My blood ran cold. She was using the identity theft, the crime she committed, and twisting it into a symptom of my paranoia. "I am not a doctor," Kelsey continued, looking earnestly into the lens. "So I won't use labels. But when someone threatens to ruin your family because they are convinced the world is out to get them, you have to protect yourself. We are just trying to get her help, but instead, she sends legal threats." She looked up, tears spilling over. "Please just pray for us, and pray for Nora. She is really sick." The comments exploded. "OMG, I knew it. Paranoid delusions." That explains the dead eyes. So sad when family refuses help. "Stay safe, Kelsey. Don't let her near you." I closed the laptop. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. She hadn't named a diagnosis. She hadn't said schizophrenic or bipolar. She had kept it vague enough to avoid a defamation claim based on medical falsehoods, but specific enough to destroy my credibility. If I released the evidence now, people would just say it was part of my delusion. Look, she made a spreadsheet. She's obsessive. She had checkmated me. I couldn't sleep. The anger was a physical weight in my chest. I sat up at 3 a.m. I thought about what Diane had said in the cafe. We have a balloon payment on the mortgage. And then what she had said about the plan. We bring you back, quietly. Why did I have to leave for them to get the money? Why couldn't I be in the house while they refinanced? Unless my presence prevented the refinance. I opened my laptop. I didn't go to Instagram. I went to the Briar Glen County Registry of Deeds. I searched Hayes Mark and Hayes Diane. The list populated. Mortgage, 1995. Refinance, 2008. Refinance, 2015. And then, the most recent entry, quitclaim deed, January 20th. 4 days before the kickout, I clicked on the document. It was a transfer of ownership. Mark and Diane Hayes were transferring the property title to an entity called Hawthorne Ridge Holdings, LLC. I frowned. Why would they sign the house over to an LLC? I looked at the address of the LLC. It wasn't a bank. It was a suite number in an office park in Revere. I cross-referenced it with the address on the bottom of the cease and desist letter from Marlowe House Media, Suite 404. It was the same address. My heart hammered against my ribs. They hadn't just refinanced. They had signed the house over to the same people who managed Kelsey. But why kick me out? I scrolled down to the signature page. Mark signed, Diane signed, and then I saw it. A requirement for the transfer. Affidavit of occupancy. The document stated that the property was free of all tenants and occupants other than the grantors. If I was living there, if I had a valid tenancy. Which I did. Thanks to the rent checks, they couldn't transfer the title without my signature or a formal eviction process. The lender, Hawthorne Ridge, wouldn't take the house if it had a sitting tenant with rights. They didn't kick me out for content. They kicked me out because the contract required the house to be empty of tenants by January 25th. The video was a smokescreen. It was a cover story to explain why I was suddenly gone, in case anyone asked. It was a way to monetize the eviction they needed to perform anyway. I sat back. The blue light of the screen illuminating the dark room. They had sold the house to Kelsey's management company, and they had thrown me away to close the deal. I wasn't just a victim of a prank. I was a victim of real estate fraud. And now, I had the document that proved it. The screen of my laptop glowed with the stark blue light of the Registry of Deeds website. It was 2 a.m, and the silence in Tessa's apartment was heavy, broken only by the rhythmic breathing of her cat sleeping on the armchair. I had the deed on the screen. Hawthorne Ridge Holdings, LLC. It sounded pastoral. It sounded established. It sounded like a company that managed estates in the English countryside. But I knew better. In the corporate world, names like that were usually masks. I opened a new tab and searched for the business filing. Massachusetts Secretary of Commonwealth. Corporate database. I typed in the name. The search wheel spun for a second, then populated the results. Hawthorne Ridge Holdings, LLC. Manager Tyler Marlowe. Principal Office 1200 Revere Beach Parkway. Suite 404 Revere, Massachusetts. I froze. I pulled up the cease and desist letter I had received 2 days ago. I looked at the footer. Marlowe House Media, 1200 Revere Beach Parkway. Suite 404 Revere, Massachusetts. They were the same company. I sat back, the plastic chair creaking under me. The implications washed over me like ice water. This wasn't just about Kelsey paying a management fee. This was vertical integration of the most predatory kind. Marlowe House Media didn't just manage influencers. They created an ecosystem of debt and dependency. They managed Kelsey's failing career, charging her fees she couldn't afford, driving her into debt. Then, when the family needed money to bail her out or keep the house afloat, the same people under a different LLC stepped in to help with a loan or a refinance. They were harvesting the family. First they took the dignity, then they took the house. I looked at the date on the deed transfer again. January 20th, 4 days before the kickout. The affidavit of occupancy required the house to be free of tenants. My parents hadn't just kicked me out for a viral video. They had kicked me out because they had signed a contract promising Hawthorne Ridge Holdings that the property was empty if I was there, paying rent, with tenant rights. The deal wouldn't close. And if the deal didn't close, the money wouldn't flow. I felt a surge of nausea. It was so much colder than I had imagined. I wasn't a daughter to them anymore. I was a lien on the property. I was an obstacle to liquidity. The next morning, I woke up with a singular, diamond-hard purpose. I needed to get the rest of my things out of that house, not because I was retreating, but because I needed to salvage what was mine before Hawthorne Ridge changed the locks. I texted Diane, "I am coming to get the rest of my belongings. Today at noon, I will be bringing a witness. Do not try to stop me." Her reply was immediate, and I knew before I read it that Kelsey had dictated it. "You can come, but Kelsey needs to be present to ensure you do not damage any property or steal anything. We have been advised to document everything. Document, code for film. I turned to Tessa, who was drinking coffee and reading a paperback thriller. I need a favor. I said, I need you to come to the house with me, and I need you to be the most boring, bureaucratic witness in the history of the world. Tessa lowered her book. I have a blazer, she said. I will look like a court summons with legs. We pulled into the driveway at noon sharp. The house looked exactly the same as it had the night I left, but it felt entirely different. It didn't look like a home anymore. It looked like an asset. I saw the curtain in the living room twitch. They were waiting. Tessa and I walked up the steps. I didn't knock. I used my key. I half expected it not to work, for the locks to have been changed already, but the bolt slid back. We stepped into the foyer. Kelsey was waiting in the hallway. She had a new setup. 2 ring lights this time, creating a shadowless, angelic glow around her. She was holding her phone on a gimbal, a stabilizing device that made the movement smooth and cinematic. Mark stood behind her, arms crossed, looking miserable. Diane was nowhere to be seen. State your names for the record, Kelsey said. She didn't say hello. She spoke to the phone, her voice dropping into that serious, documentary register she used for her serious videos. I am not playing this game. Kelsey, I said, walking past her toward the stairs. She pivoted, the gimbal whirring softly as it tracked me. Note that the aggressor is refusing to identify herself. Kelsey narrated. She is entering the premises with an unidentified associate. I stopped on the bottom step and turned around. Tessa stopped next to me. I am Nora Hayes, I said, looking directly into the lens. This is Tessa Vance. She is here as a witness to ensure that I can retrieve my personal property without harassment. If you continue to film me after I have expressly asked you not to, we will add it to the harassment file. Kelsey faltered. She looked at Mark. The script hadn't accounted for a witness who looked like a paralegal. Let her get her stuff. Mark grunted. Just get it done. Nora. I walked up the stairs, my heart pounding in my throat. I went into my room. It had been tossed. My drawers were open. My closet was rifled through. They had been looking for something. Or maybe Kelsey had just done it to find props for a "look at how messy she is" video. I opened my backpack and started shoving clothes into it. I didn't fold anything. I just wanted out. Tessa stood in the doorway, her phone out, recording the floor. She wasn't filming faces, just the audio and the environment. I cleared the closet. I cleared the desk. Then I knelt down to reach under the bed. There was a wooden box there, an old cedar chest that had belonged to my grandmother, Eleanor. It was where I kept the things that mattered: old yearbooks, photos, and a tin recipe box that smelled like cinnamon and dust. I pulled it out. The latch was broken. Someone had opened it. I opened the lid. The contents were jumbled. My grandmother's handwritten recipe cards for apple cake and pot roast were scattered, but stuck to the bottom of the tin, jammed under a divider, was a folded piece of blue stationery. I didn't recognize it. I pulled it out. It was addressed to Nora. In Grandma's shaky, spidery cursive, I unfolded it. The date at the top was 3 years ago, 2 weeks before she died. My dearest Nora, I am writing this because I know how things go with your mother. She means well, but she gets frightened about money, and when she gets frightened, she makes mistakes. I have left a small instruction with Mr. Henderson, not your boss, the other one, the attorney on Main Street, regarding the insurance policy. It is not a fortune, but it is $20,000. It is meant for you, to help you start over if you ever need to. I know you are the strong one, but even strong trees need rain. I have told Diane that this money is yours. She promised to give you the check when the estate settles. If you're reading this, I hope you bought something wonderful. Love, Grandma. I sat on the floor, the paper trembling in my hand. $20,000. When Grandma died, Diane had told me there was no money. She said the life insurance barely covered the funeral. She had cried about how expensive the casket was. I had believed her. I had paid for the flowers myself. I stood up. A cold, white-hot rage clarified my vision. This wasn't just about the house. This was theft, Nora Tessa asked. Seeing my face, I walked past her. I walked down the stairs, gripping the letter so hard the paper crinkled. Kelsey was waiting at the bottom, the camera still rolling. Got everything she asked snidely. I walked right up to the camera. I didn't care anymore. "Where's the money?" "Mom," I shouted. Diane appeared from the kitchen, looking startled. What? I held up the blue letter. "Grandma left me $20,000. She says it right here. She told you. You promised her." "Where is it?" Kelsey panned the camera to Diane. For a second, the influencer mask slipped, and she looked genuinely confused. "Mom," Kelsey said, "what is she talking about?" Diane's face went the color of ash. She put a hand to her throat. "Nora, that was years ago. That money went into the house. We had to fix the roof. You know that. The letter says it was for me." I said, my voice steady and low, "Did you cash a check made out to me?" Mark stepped forward. "Nora, stop it. You are hysterical. There was no trust. It was a misunderstanding. Grandma was confused at the end." "She wasn't confused," I snapped. "She wrote this 2 weeks before she died, and she says she told you." I looked at Diane. "Did you forge my signature?" I asked. "Because if the check was issued to me, that is the only way you could have cashed it." Diane looked at the camera, then at Kelsey. "Turn it off," she whispered. Kelsey didn't turn it off. She was staring at her mother, a look of slow horror dawning on her face. Not moral horror, financial horror. She was realizing that the narrative was slipping. "Mom, did you take her money?" Kelsey asked. "Turn it off," Mark roared. He reached out and knocked the phone from Kelsey's hand. It clattered to the floor, spinning face down. The silence that followed was deafening. I stepped closer to my mother. "You stole from me." I said, "You let me believe I was broke. You let me drain my savings to move out the first time. You let me come back here and pay you rent. And all the while, you had $20,000 of my money. We raised you," Mark shouted. "Stepping between us, we put a roof over your head for 18 years. You owe us. I don't owe you my grandmother's legacy." I said, I looked at the phone on the floor. "I hope that was recording." I said to Kelsey, "Because if you post that, you are going to prison as an accessory." I turned to Tessa. "Let's go." We walked out. My legs were shaking so hard I could barely descend the porch steps. I felt like the ground had dissolved. My parents weren't just bad with money. They were thieves. And they had justified it all: the theft, the lies, the kick out, because in their minds, I belonged to them. My money was their money. My life was their resource. We drove to Lila's office. I didn't even go back to the apartment. I needed legal armor immediately. I showed Lila the letter. I told her about the confrontation. "This changes the complexion of the case," Lila said, her voice grim. "We are moving from defamation to conversion and fraud. If they forged your signature on an insurance check, that is a felony." She leaned back. "However, proving it might take time. We need to subpoena the insurance company records to see who endorsed the check. That takes weeks. I don't have weeks." I said, "They are selling the house. The deed transfer happened on the 20th. Lila's eyes narrowed. "If they transferred the house to Hawthorne Ridge, and they did it to hide assets or wash money, and they used a fraudulent affidavit to kick you out." She started typing furiously. "Okay. We are going to file a civil complaint, but we are also going to send a preservation letter to Hawthorne Ridge. We are going to let them know that the title they just acquired is subject to litigation regarding a constructive trust and potential fraud. No lender will touch that property with a 10-foot pole if there is a lawsuit attached to the title." She looked at me. "Nora, this is the nuclear option. If we do this, the refinance dies. Your parents might lose the house entirely. They will be bankrupt." I thought about the blue letter. I thought about the suitcase on the lawn. I thought about the ring light. They made their choice. I said, "Push the button." That night, I was sitting on Tessa's couch, numbly watching the rain streak the window. When my phone buzzed, it was Rowan. I found it. I had to dig through an old iPad backup. But I found the chat. She sent a series of screenshots. They were dated January 10th, 2 weeks before the kickout. Group chat team: Kelsey. Mark, Diane. Tyler, M. Tyler. M. We need a climax for the toxic sister arc. Engagement is flatlining on the passive-aggressive stuff. We need an event. Kelsey. I can try to pick a fight about the bathroom again. Tyler, M. No. Bigger. We need an expulsion. The kick-out is a high-performing trope right now. Look at what Jenna J did last month. 5 million views. Diane. I don't know. Tyler, that seems extreme. Where would she go, Tyler? M. It is just for a few days. Diane. She goes to a hotel. We film the exit. It creates a cliffhanger. Where is Nora? We milk that for a week. Then we bring her back for a reconciliation arc. Redemption stories monetize at a higher CPM. Kelsey. Ooh, I like that. We can do a welcome home party video later. Get a balloon arch. Mark. What if she refuses to leave Tyler M? Make it impossible for her to stay. Accuse her of something unstable. Violence plays well. Make it look like she is lunging. If you can get her to shout, we can edit the rest. Kelsey. I can do that. I know what buttons to push. Tyler M. Perfect. And Mark when she leaves. Don't just hand her the bag. Throw it. It is visual language. It shows finality. Mark. Okay. I guess. I read the texts. I felt a strange detachment. Like I was reading a script for a play I had already seen. Make it look like she is lunging. Throw it. It is visual language. They had discussed my homelessness like it was a plot point in a sitcom. Diane had hesitated. Not because it was cruel, but because she didn't know where I would sleep. And Tyler had assured her it was just for a few days. But Tyler knew about the deed transfer. He knew the house had to be empty. He had lied to Diane, too. He had manipulated them into kicking me out so his company could secure the asset. My parents were villains, yes, but they were also puppets. I forwarded the screenshots to Lila. Exhibit D conspiracy. Lila called me 10 minutes later. This is it, she said. This is the smoking gun. We have intent. We have malice. We have the choreography of the fraud. What do? We prepare the filing. She said, but Nora, there is something else. I got a call from a journalist. His name is Ben Cohen. He writes for the Boston Globe's digital vertical. He said he was pitched a story by Marlowe House Media about the dark side of influencer families. They tried to sell him an exclusive interview with Kelsey, and then he said the pitch felt oily. He did some digging. He saw the LLC connection. He wants to talk to you. I hesitated. Lila had said to be a ghost. Lila sensed my hesitation. The strategy shifts now. Nora, we have the receipts. If Marlowe House is trying to get ahead of the story in the press, we need to cut them off. But you don't give an interview. You give a statement. Controlled, factual, deadly. Send him to me. I said. Ben Cohen called me at 10 the next morning. His voice was deep, tired, and sounded like he had spent too many years listening to people lie to him. Ms. Hayes, he said, thanks for taking the call. I have to be honest. Usually I delete these influencer pitches, but something about this one, the sheer volume of documentation they sent me about your instability, felt defensive. They sent you documentation, I asked. A dossier. Screen grabs of texts where you sound angry. Photos of a messy room. It felt curated. It was. I said, Mr. Cohen, I am not going to give you a sob story. I am going to send you a link to a Google Drive folder. Inside, you will find unedited metadata, bank statements proving rental payments, and a copy of a deed transfer showing that the management company representing my sister also owns my parents' house. There was a silence on the line. The sound of typing stopped. They own the house, Ben asked. Since January 20th, I said. I heard a low whistle. Okay, Ben said. That is not a family drama story. That is a predatory lending story. I am sending the link now. I said, I have one request. Name it. Don't paint me as a victim. I am not a victim. I am a whistleblower. I spent the rest of the day drafting my public statement. Lila edited it. We stripped out every adjective. We removed every trace of emotion. Statement regarding the video posted by The Toxic Truth on January 24th, 1. I was filmed without my consent in my private residence. 2. The video was edited to alter the chronology of events and imply violence where none occurred. 3. At no time did I refuse to pay rent. I have provided proof of 6 months of payments to my legal counsel. 4. The eviction was not a spontaneous family decision, but a pre-planned event coordinated by Marlowe House Media to satisfy the occupancy requirements of a real estate transfer. 5. I have initiated legal proceedings against all parties involved for defamation, fraud, and unlawful eviction. I will not be commenting further. The evidence has been provided to the relevant authorities and press outlets. Nora Hayes. I didn't post it yet. Lila wanted to file the court papers first. We wanted the lawsuit to be public record the moment the statement dropped. The sun was setting on the 4th day of my exile. The sky was a bruised purple. My phone rang. It was Diane. I looked at the screen. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but a part of me, the part that was still the daughter who bought the world's okayest mom mug, needed to hear her voice. I answered, "Hello, Nora." Diane sounded wrecked. Her voice was thick with tears. "Nora, please, you have to stop." "Stop what?" "Mom, Mark got an email from the bank, or from the LLC. They said there is a legal hold on the title. They said the refinance is frozen." "Good." I said, "Nora, we need that money. Mark is going to lose the store. We have payroll to meet. If that deal doesn't go through, we lose everything. You should have thought of that before you stole my inheritance." I said, "We didn't steal it. We borrowed it. We were going to pay you back." Diane sobbed. A jagged, ugly sound. "We are a family. Nora, families forgive. Please, just tell the lawyers to stop. Tell them it was a mistake. Come home. We can fix up the guest room for you. Kelsey is sorry. She is so sorry." I listened to her cry. For a moment, I wavered. It was my mother. She sounded broken, but then, in the background, faint but distinct, I heard a whisper. "Ask her about the lawsuit. Get her to say she will drop it." It was Kelsey. She wasn't sorry. She was directing the scene. Diane continued, unaware I had heard. "Nora, are you there? Please, honey, just say you will drop it, for Daddy." The manipulation was so clumsy, so desperate, for Daddy, the man who had thrown my suitcase, the man who had called me a moocher while spending my grandmother's money. I felt the last thread of attachment snap. It wasn't a loud noise. It was a quiet release. "Mom," I said. "Yes," she said, hope rising in her voice. "Tell Kelsey her whisper is too loud. She needs to work on her audio levels." There was a gasp, then a shuffle. I hung up. I looked at Tessa. "They are recording the phone calls now," I said. Tessa shook her head. "They don't know when to stop." "No," I said. "They don't. That is why we have to stop them." I opened my laptop. I messaged Ben Cohen. "Go ahead. Run the story." Then I messaged Lila. "File it." I walked to the window and looked out at the street. I wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. I knew exactly what was out there, and for the first time in a week, I knew exactly who I was. I wasn't the sister. I wasn't the daughter. I was the plaintiff. The forensic accounting of my parents' ruin was a slow, grim peel. It took 3 days for the full picture to emerge, pieced together by Lila's paralegal and the public records Ben Cohen, the journalist, had accessed. I sat at Tessa's kitchen table. The documents spread out like an autopsy. Mark's hardware store, the one he had managed for 20 years and bought into 10 years ago, had been dead for 18 months. The big box retailer on the highway had strangled it, but Mark had refused to close. Instead, he had poured personal savings into it, then credit cards, then a home equity line of credit. Diane had been juggling. That was the only word for it. She had 5 credit cards maxed out to the limit. She was using cash advances from one to pay the minimums on another. It was a classic, tragic American story of middle-class suffocation. Until it wasn't. Until they met Tyler Marlowe. I looked at the timeline. The debts had spiraled out of control in October. That was when Kelsey had moved back home. That was when the investment in her career began. They saw her not as a daughter, but as a startup. If she could just hit the algorithmic lottery, the brand deals would pay off the cards, save the store, and clear the mortgage. I was the collateral damage. I was the person standing in the way of the payout. My phone buzzed. It was an alert from the credit monitoring service I had signed up for after the loan attempt. New alert inquiry. Blocked. I opened the app. Someone had tried to open a store credit card at a high-end electronics retailer using my social security number and my old address, the one I had moved out of 6 months ago. They were trying to use the old address so the bills wouldn't come to the house, so I wouldn't see them. It wasn't just a loan for Bridge Capital anymore. It was looting. They were trying to strip mine my credit score before the ship went down. I called the police station in Briar Glen. I filed an official identity theft report. The officer on the phone sounded bored until I gave him the specific details of the suspects. The suspects are my parents and my sister. I said, my voice flat. There was a pause on the line. Are you sure you want to proceed? Ma'am, that is a felony charge. I am looking at the inquiry. Officer, proceed. I hung up. My hands weren't shaking this time. I felt a cold, calcified hardness in my chest. They had broken the social contract of family long before I called the police. I was just filing the paperwork. Ben Cohen sent me a secure upload link at noon. I am running the piece on Sunday. He wrote, I need everything you have by 5 today. Verify everything. If it is not in writing, it doesn't exist. I spent the afternoon assembling the packet. It was the most important project of my career. Folder 1. The money. I included the PDFs of the 6 cashed and uncashed rent checks. I included the screenshot of the bank transfer I had sent Diane for groceries in December. I included the text message where Diane thanked me for the contribution to the heating bill. Narrative tenant was in good standing. Financial abuse claims are false. Folder 2. The production. I uploaded the photo of the hallway with the ring light and Kelsey's handwritten script notes. I circled the date in the metadata, January 10th, 2 weeks before the alleged spontaneous fight. I added the screenshots from Rowan, redactions in place to protect her identity, showing the premeditation, make it look like she is lunging. Folder 3. The edit. I created a frame-by-frame breakdown of the viral video. 0045. Sunlight hits the west wall at a 45-degree angle. 0048 sunlight is gone. Shadows are diffused. Conclusion. A 20-minute gap disguised as a 2-second reaction shot. I zipped the file. I named it Hayes_evidence_final. I hit send. It felt like launching a missile. The article dropped on Sunday morning. I woke up to Tessa shaking my shoulder. It is up, she said. I sat up, grabbing my glasses. Tessa handed me her tablet. The headline was not what I expected. It wasn't about me. The reality trap. How boutique agencies are manufacturing family trauma for clicks. By Ben Cohen. The cover image was a silhouette of a girl holding a ring light, standing over a person sitting on the floor. It wasn't us, but it looked like us. I read the first paragraph. In the new economy of attention, conflict is currency. But for the Hayes family of Briar Glen, the price of viral fame may be legal ruin. What appeared to millions as a spontaneous domestic breakdown was, according to documents reviewed by the Globe, a carefully orchestrated production designed to liquidate a family asset and conceal a complex web of debt. He didn't paint me as a saint. He painted me as a whistleblower. He laid out the timeline, the formation of Hawthorne Ridge Holdings, the deed transfer, the script notes. He quoted a legal expert who dismantled the concept of the kick-out video, calling it a digitized form of constructive eviction. I scrolled to the comments section, usually a cesspool, but today, the tide had turned. Wait, so the management company owns the house. That is dark. I knew that jump cut looked weird. Who films a fight with a stabilizer? The sister isn't crazy. She's a tenant being defrauded. Why did Kelsey make a new account just for this video? If it was real, Wouldn't she post it on her main? The narrative was cracking. I went to Instagram. I searched for the toxic truth. The account name had changed. It was now Kelsey Life Unfiltered. The bio had been scrubbed. The link to Marlowe House Media was gone. They were scrubbing the scene of the crime. I called Lila. They are deleting things. I said. Lila laughed. A dry, sharp sound. Good. That is called spoliation of evidence. I sent them a preservation letter 3 days ago. If they delete a single post, a single comment, a single metadata file, the judge will instruct the jury to assume the worst. It is the Streisand effect. Nora, the more they try to hide it, the more guilty they look. Kelsey didn't hide. She pivoted. That evening, she went live. I watched from a burner account Tessa had set up. Kelsey was in a hotel room now, or a room staged to look like one. She was wearing a hoodie, looking small and vulnerable. Guys, she whispered, I am under attack. My sister. She has gone to the press. She is twisting everything. She is working with a journalist to destroy me because she is jealous of the community we have built here. A donation sticker appeared on the screen. Legal Defense Fund. She is threatening to sue me for everything I have. She wants to silence victims. She wants to make sure no one ever speaks up about family toxicity again. I need your help to fight this. The donations started rolling in. $5, $10. A few $50 bursts. I watched the numbers tick up. It was sickening. She was monetizing the exposure of her own fraud. But then, the chat started to shift. User 459. Why did you edit the video? Kelsey Truth Seeker. Can you explain the shadow jump at 045? Briar Glen, local. Is it true your management company owns your parents' house? Kelsey's eyes darted to the comments. She tried to ignore them. I'm just trying to speak my truth. She stammered. The haters are they are bots. My sister probably hired bots. User 88. Why does the Globe article have screenshots of you scripting the fight Justice for Nora? Show us the unedited clip. If she was violent. Show the raw footage. Kelsey's hand went to her hair. She pulled at a strand. A nervous tic I remembered from childhood. I can't show the raw footage, she said, her voice rising. It is too traumatic, and my lawyer said I can't. User 99. You just said you need money for lawyers. Do you have them or not? She ended the live stream abruptly. The screen went black. I sat back. The court of public opinion was a fickle beast, but it had a nose for inconsistency. Ben Cohen's article had given them a roadmap, and now they were dissecting her performance in real time. The next day, Diane texted me, meet me, please, not at a cafe, the park by the river, alone. I debated not going. I had the recording from the last time. I had the upper hand. But there was a persistent, aching curiosity. I needed to hear her say it. Not the lie about the bridge capital, but the real reason. I drove to the river. I parked my car facing out, ready to leave. I checked the dash cam Tessa had installed. It was blinking red. Recording. Diane was sitting on a bench near the frozen water. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her. The coat she wore was the expensive one she had bought 2 years ago, back when Mark's store was still pretending to be solvent. I walked over but didn't sit. I stood 6 feet away. What do you want? Mom Diane didn't look up. She was staring at the gray ice. They are going to foreclose, she said softly. Who Hawthorne Ridge? Tyler. He called Mark this morning. He said the negative press is a breach of contract. He said the morality clause allows them to accelerate the loan. They want the house, Nora. They are going to take it, and we still owe the money. I felt a flicker of pity, but I stomped it out. You signed the papers. Mom, you read the fine print. Diane looked up. Her face was ravaged by stress. We did it for you, she said. I stepped back, as if she had slapped me. Don't you dare, I said. Don't you dare put this on me. We did, she cried. We thought if Kelsey could just get this one big break, we could pay off the debts. We could save the inheritance. We could give you the money Grandma left. I laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound that scared a flock of geese nearby. You stole the money Grandma left to pay for the scheme that got me kicked out. That is not for me, Mom. That is cannibalism. Diane stood up. She reached for me. We needed you to leave so we could hide it, she sobbed. We thought if you were gone for a few weeks, we could fix the title, get the loan, and then bring you back before you ever asked about the trust. We thought it would blow over. I stared at her. The confession hung in the cold air. There it was. They hadn't kicked me out because they hated me. They kicked me out because I was the witness. I was the one who would have noticed the mail. I was the one who would have asked why the deed was being transferred. I was the responsible one, the one who understood contracts and interest rates. I was the obstacle. And because I was the quiet one, the steady one, they thought I would just take it. They thought I would sleep in my car, cry a little, and then come back when they whistled. You used me as a scapegoat, I said, my voice shaking. Because I was convenient. Diane wiped her face. We were desperate. You don't know what it is like. Nora, to lose everything. I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had taught me to tie my shoes, who had made me soup when I was sick, and I saw a stranger who would sell me to a stranger for a lower interest rate. I know exactly what it is like to lose everything. Mom, I said, you taught me last week. I turned around. Nora, Diane called out. Nora, help us. You can stop the lawsuit. You can tell them it was a misunderstanding. I kept walking. I can't help you, I said without looking back. I have to go to work. I went straight to Lila's office. I want the injunction, I said. Lila looked up from her computer. She saw the set of my jaw. She didn't ask if I was sure. We are filing for a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction, she said. We are asking the court to freeze the assets of Marlowe House Media, including the property at 42 Elm Street, your parents' house, pending the outcome of the fraud trial. Do it, I said, and Lila added, sliding a document across the desk. We need this. It was a sworn declaration. I, Nora Hayes, declare under penalty of perjury. I sat down and picked up the pen. I wrote about the ring light. I wrote about the rent checks. I wrote about the trust letter. I wrote about the conversation by the river where my mother admitted the kick-out was a diversionary tactic. I signed it. Lila took the paper. This goes to the judge tomorrow morning. Once it is filed, it is a public record. The press will pick it up. The internet will pick it up. There is no going back. I am not going back. I said. Lila nodded. One more thing. We need to issue a statement about the fundraiser. Kelsey is collecting money based on a fraudulent premise. That is wire fraud. We drafted a press release. Legal notice. Any funds collected by Kelsey Hayes under the guise of a legal defense fund are being solicited based on demonstrably false claims regarding the nature of her eviction of Nora Hayes. Donors are advised that these funds may be subject to seizure as proceeds of fraud. It was a warning shot to every platform hosting her. It was a way to cut off the money supply. That night, I sat in Tessa's living room. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a hollow exhaustion. I had done it. I had dismantled the lie. I had protected my name, but I didn't feel triumphant. I felt like I had survived a natural disaster, only to realize the disaster was my own bloodline. Tessa handed me a glass of wine. Don't look at the phone, she said. I have to. I said. I opened Instagram. Kelsey had posted a new story. It wasn't a video of her crying. It was a black screen with white text, a countdown timer. Tomorrow, 12 p.m., the truth comes out. I have tried to protect her. I have tried to be the bigger person, but if she wants to involve the law, I have to show the world what really happened that night. I am releasing the footage of what Nora did before the camera started rolling. The part she doesn't want you to see. The real story truth. I stared at the timer ticking down. 14 hours, 32 minutes. Tessa looked over my shoulder. What is she talking about? Tessa asked, sounding worried. Did you do something? Did you scream? Did you throw something? I closed my eyes. I thought back to that night. I played every second in my mind. I had come home. I had seen the ring light. I had seen the undeposited checks. I had confronted them. I hadn't screamed until they accused me of mooching. I hadn't thrown anything, but I remembered something else. I remembered the moment before the fight started. I remembered walking into the kitchen and seeing Kelsey adjusting the phone on the shelf. I remembered what I had said to her when I thought we were just sisters, before I knew the camera was on. I looked at the countdown. "She is bluffing," I whispered, "or she manipulated something else." Tessa said, "Deepfake." AI audio. "Maybe," I said, but as I watched the seconds tick away, a strange calm settled over me. Let her try. I reached into my bag and pulled out the flash drive Lila had given me, the one containing the full forensic download of my cloud backup, which included the automatic audio backup from my smartwatch. I wore an Apple Watch. It had a noise app. It triggered when decibel levels spiked. I had checked it yesterday. It had recorded the fight. It had recorded the silence before the fight. It had recorded Kelsey whispering to Mark, "Wait until she puts her bag down. Then start the line." She was going to release a fake prequel, and I was going to release the director's commentary. I looked at the screen. "Do it," I whispered. I was ready. Because I had something she didn't expect. I had the truth, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid to use it as a weapon. The countdown on Kelsey's Instagram story ticked toward 0. It was 11:55 in the morning. I sat at Tessa's dining table, my hands resting on the cool laminate surface. The winter sun was harsh against the window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I was not refreshing Kelsey's page. I was looking at my own draft folder. Lila had advised me to wait, to let Kelsey strike first and then counter. But I knew how the internet worked. The first story is the truth. Everything else is a defense. If Kelsey dropped a video of me screaming, even if it was out of context, even if it was from 3 years ago, the image would stick. I would be the crazy sister forever. I could not let her frame the narrative again. I looked at the post I had prepared. It was not a video. It was a single image, a black square with the date and time of the kick-out stamped in white text. The caption was a link to a Google Drive folder hosted by Lila's firm. The folder contained no rants. It contained the forensic timeline. It contained the rental agreement. It contained the copy of the deed transfer showing Hawthorne Ridge Holdings owned the house. It contained the sworn affidavits. I checked the time. 11:56. I am posting it. I said to Tessa. Tessa looked up from her laptop. Now. Before she drops the bomb, I am defusing the bomb. I said. I hit share. The post went live. I didn't wait for likes. I switched tabs to the journalist Ben Cohen's Twitter feed. He was ready. 1 minute later, he retweeted my post with a comment. For those following the Hayes saga, here's the documentation regarding the property transfer and the alleged staging of the viral incident. Then, the clock hit noon. Kelsey's account updated. The truth exposed. It was a video. The thumbnail was my face, red and contorted, mouth open in a scream. I pressed play. The video was shaky, filmed from a low angle, as if the phone was hidden in a pocket. In the clip, I was standing in the kitchen, shouting, "You are a liar. You ruin everything you touch. I hate you." The audio was blown out, distorted. I looked deranged. I was waving a spatula. The video cut to black. Text appeared. This is the Nora you don't see. This was 10 minutes before she was asked to leave. I watched it twice. My heart hammered against my ribs. A frantic bird trapped in a cage. It looked bad. It looked violent. But then I looked closer. In the video, I was wearing a thick blue cable-knit sweater. On the night of the kickout, the night shown in the original viral clip, I was wearing my work clothes, a gray cardigan and a black blouse. I looked at the background. Through the kitchen window behind me, the trees were green, full, lush leaves pressing against the glass. It was January. The trees outside were bare skeletons. She had used a video from last summer. It was from July. The day I found out she had borrowed my car without asking and scraped the side of it against a pylon. I had screamed. I had been furious. But it wasn't the night of the kickout. I turned to Tessa. Look at the trees. Tessa squinted. They are green. It is July. I said, that video is 6 months old. I didn't have to point it out. The internet, a hive mind of millions of bored and cynical detectives, was already on it. I refreshed the comments on Kelsey's post. User 44. Wait, in the first video, Nora is wearing gray. Here she is wearing blue. Did she change clothes in 10 minutes? Detective X, look at the window. Those are leaves. It is winter in Massachusetts. There are no leaves. Truth hurts. This is old footage. She is trying to pass off a summer fight as the reason for a winter eviction. Ben Cohen. The metadata on the original clip confirms the date as January 24th. The foliage in this new clip is inconsistent with the season. The hashtag began to flip. Nora, is crazy stopped trending. Kelsey lied began to climb. Then, the dam broke. A TikTok creator with 3 million followers stitched Kelsey's video. She paused it on the frame showing the green trees. Honey, the creator said, looking over her glasses, if you are going to frame your sister, check the continuity. This is lazy writing. Another creator, a young woman who did makeup tutorials, posted a video titled, My Experience with Marlowe House. I wasn't going to say anything, she whispered, wiping mascara from under her eyes. But seeing what they are doing to Nora, I have to speak. Tyler Marlowe approached me last year. He told me my engagement was low because my life was too boring. He sent me a script. He wanted me to accuse my boyfriend of cheating on a live stream. When I refused, he sent me a bill for consulting fees. This is what they do. Screenshots started flooding Twitter. Emails from Marlowe House pitching family conflict stories. Price sheets for viral narrative packages. It was an avalanche. Kelsey's follower count, which had spiked to 2 million, began to freefall. She lost 10,000 followers in an hour, then 20,000. The platforms noticed. Instagram removed the original kick-out video, citing a violation of their bullying and harassment policy. The Legal Defense Fund link was disabled for suspicious activity. I sat there, watching the digital empire crumble. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. My phone rang at 4 o'clock. It was Mark. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. Then Diane called. I texted Lila. They are calling. Lila replied. Do not answer. We have a mediation session scheduled for tomorrow at 10. Save it for the room. But they didn't stop. Finally, a text came through from Mark. Nora, please, we need to talk. The bank is pulling the loan. Tyler is not answering our calls. We are going to lose the house. Just come over. We can work this out. Your room is ready. My room is ready. He still didn't get it. He thought this was about a room. He thought if he gave me back my 10 by 12 square of carpet, I would retract the affidavits, call off the lawyers, and save them from the consequences of their own greed. I typed back one word. Tomorrow. The mediator's office was in the basement of the courthouse, a room that smelled of stale coffee and floor wax. It was neutral ground, but it felt like a bunker. I arrived with Lila. We wore matching charcoal suits. We carried matching binders. We looked like an execution squad. Mark and Diane were already there. They sat on one side of the long oval table. They looked 10 years older than they had a week ago. Mark was unshaven. Diane was trembling, her hands clasping and unclasping a tissue. Kelsey sat between them. She was wearing sunglasses indoors. She had her arms crossed, her chin jutting out in a posture of defiance that looked fragile, like spun sugar. The mediator, a retired judge named Mr. Henderson, no relation to my boss, cleared his throat. We are here to discuss the civil complaint filed by Ms. Hayes regarding the property at 42 Elm Street and the associated claims of defamation and conversion. He said. Mark spoke first. He leaned across the table. Nora, he said, his voice raspy. This has to stop. You are destroying us. I looked at him. I am not doing anything. Dad, I am just telling the truth. The truth, Kelsey scoffed behind her sunglasses. You are ruining my career. You do not care about the truth. You just want revenge because you are jealous that I actually tried to make something of myself. Lila placed a hand on my arm, silencing me. "Let us look at the facts," Lila said calmly. "My client was evicted under false pretenses to facilitate a fraudulent transfer of deed. We have the documents. We know about Hawthorne Ridge." Diane began to cry. "We didn't know." She sobbed. "We didn't know Tyler owned the company. He just said he could help us with the refinance. You knew enough to lie to me." I said, "You knew enough to kick me out because the paperwork required an empty house. It was just business," Mark shouted, slamming his hand on the table. "We were trying to save the business. And what about my money?" I asked. The room went quiet. "What money?" Mark asked, feigning ignorance. "The trust." I said, "Grandma's trust?" Mark rolled his eyes. "Nora, we told you. There was no trust. She was old. She was confused." I opened my binder. I pulled out a document I had received only that morning. Lila had worked a miracle with the insurance company, expediting the subpoena response by threatening a bad faith claim. I slid the paper across the table. It was a copy of a cashed check, dated 3 years ago, paid to the order of Nora Hayes, amount $20,000. Endorsed by Nora Hayes, but the signature on the back wasn't mine. It was looped, shaky, trying too hard to look like mine. "That is not my signature," I said. Diane stopped crying. She stared at the check. "I hired a handwriting expert," Lila said. "He is prepared to testify that the signature matches the handwriting on samples provided by Diane Hayes. Specifically, the grocery lists and birthday cards we submitted for comparison." I looked at my mother. "You forged my name," I said. "You took the money Grandma left me to start a new life, and you put it into the store. Or into Kelsey's camera equipment." Diane looked down. Her voice was a whisper. "We needed it. It wasn't yours to need," I yelled. The sound cracked the polite atmosphere of the room. It was the first time I had raised my voice in 10 years. I took a breath. "And the rent," I said. I pulled out the copies of the undeposited checks. "You told everyone I was a moocher. You told the world I refused to pay. But you held these checks. You framed me." Kelsey stood up. She ripped off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red, wild. "So what?" she screamed. "So what if we did? You have a job. You are boring. You are fine. I needed this. Nora. I needed to make it." She pointed a shaking finger at me. "Do you know how hard it is? Do you know how much pressure I'm under?" Tyler said. "If I didn't hit 2 million views," he was dropping me. "He said he would call the loan on the house. I had to do it." She was breathing hard, chest heaving. "I had to make it look real," she shouted. "Because you are so stiff. You wouldn't give me the reaction I needed unless I actually hurt you, so I hurt you. It was a production choice." The admission hung in the air. It was a production choice. The mediator stopped writing. Lila looked at me. Mark put his head in his hands. Diane looked at Kelsey with horror, as if seeing her for the first time. "You admitted it," I said softly. Kelsey looked around the room, realizing what she had done. She slumped back into her chair. "It doesn't matter," she muttered. "It is over anyway. Tyler canceled the contract this morning. The house is gone." She looked at me with pure hatred. "Are you happy?" "Nora. You won. We are homeless." I looked at them. My father, the failed businessman who stole from his daughter, my mother, the enabler who forged my name, my sister, who turned my pain into content. "No," I said, "I am not happy." I stood up. I closed my binder. "I am not proceeding with the defamation suit." I said. Mark looked up, hope sparking in his eyes. "You are dropping it. I am dropping the defamation claim." I repeated, "Because you have nothing left to take, and I don't want to spend another minute of my life thinking about you." I looked at Diane. "But I'm forwarding the forgery evidence to the district attorney. That is not a civil matter." "Mom, that is a crime," Diane gasped. "Nora, no, you can't, I can't," I said. And I will." I turned to the mediator. "We are done here." I walked to the door. Nora, Mark called out, "Where are you going? You can't just leave us like this. We are your family." I stopped with my hand on the knob. I looked back at them one last time. They looked small. They looked like strangers. I don't have a family. I said, I have a case file. I walked out. The air outside the courthouse was cold, biting and clean. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with it. It hurt. But it was a good hurt. Lila walked beside me. You did good, she said. I don't feel good. I admitted. You shouldn't, she said. You just amputated a limb. It is supposed to hurt, but it saves the patient. I nodded. I signed a lease this morning. I said, a studio apartment in the next town over. It has a view of a parking lot, but the lock is mine. Good, Lila said. Change your number. New SIM card is in my pocket. I stopped at the corner. Thank you. Lila. She adjusted her glasses. Send me the check when you get settled. I gave you the family discount. I watched her walk away. I went to my car. I sat in the driver's seat. I looked at my phone. The notifications were still pouring in. But I didn't care about them anymore. The internet had moved on to the next villain. The next victim. I was just yesterday's tea. I took the SIM card out of the phone. I snapped it in half. I put the new one in. The phone rebooted. A clean slate. No contacts. No messages. No history. I started the car. But before I could put it in drive, a notification popped up. Instagram new message request from user_8829. I hesitated. It was probably a troll, or a journalist, but the preview showed a video attachment. I opened it. The video was short, 10 seconds. It was filmed from a different angle. From the living room window looking into the kitchen, it showed the kitchen before I came home that night. Kelsey was setting up the phone on the shelf. Mark was standing by the door, holding my suitcase. In the video, the audio was crystal clear. Okay, the angle is good, Kelsey said. She walked over to Mark. She adjusted his collar. Listen, Dad, she said. When she steps out, grab the bag. Don't hesitate. You have to look scary. We need people to think she is dangerous. Mark looked uncomfortable. I don't know. Kels, it feels wrong. Kelsey grabbed his face. Do you want to lose the store? Do you want to be a failure? Do it. Mark nodded slowly. Okay, action in 3. Kelsey whispered. The video ended. I stared at the screen. It wasn't just proof of the staging. It was proof of the coercion. It was proof that my father hadn't wanted to do it. But his fear of failure weaponized by his daughter had broken him. I looked at the sender. User_8829. There was no profile picture, no bio. But then a text bubble appeared below the video. I was the editor at Marlowe House. I quit this morning. I thought you should have this. In case they ever try to lie about you again, I saved the video. I saved it to the cloud. I saved it to a hard drive. Then I typed back, thank you. I put the phone down. I didn't post it. I didn't send it to Ben Cohen. I didn't need to. I knew the truth. The world knew enough. I put the car in drive. I pulled out of the parking lot. I drove past the turn for Briar Glen. I drove past the turn for my parents' house. I drove toward the highway. The road ahead was gray and straight. I didn't know exactly where I was going in the long run. I had $20,000 less than I should have, and a family tree that had been pruned down to the roots. But as I merged onto the interstate, watching the town shrink in my rearview mirror until it was nothing but a smudge on the horizon, I realized something. I was driving my own car. I was paying for my own gas. And for the first time in my life, no one was directing the scene. I turned on the radio. I turned it up loud. And I drove. Thank you so much for reading Nora's story. It is a heavy one, but I hope it resonated with you. I know how painful family betrayal can be, and how hard it is to stand up for yourself when the people you love are the ones hurting you. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you reading from today? Have you ever had to make a tough choice to protect your own peace? If you enjoyed this story and want to see more like it, please subscribe to Revenge Stories. I post new stories every week about justice, resilience, and the complicated mess of being human. Take care of yourselves.